If you do an SEO-based strategy on Pinterest from the beginning, you really have kind of this freedom and flexibility just to continue putting your content there, and you don't really need to do much else. You don't need to engage with other people. You don't have to go in other people's comments. You don't need to have DMs going. You don't have to post stories in order to keep your profile alive.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to #Ad by Penji. This is a podcast where we discuss everything influencer marketing related. We talk tips to help assist you in your influencer journey and so much more. I'm your host, Daniela, and I'm Penji's influencer coordinator. Today, I'm joined here with a very special guest, Heather Farris. Hi, Heather. How are you?
Hi, Daniela. I'm well. How are you?
I'm very happy to have you today. For anybody who wants to learn about you or doesn't know who you are, can you tell us a little bit of what you do? Give us a quick rundown.
My name is Heather Farris, as you already mentioned, and I have been doing Pinterest marketing strategy and implementation for myself, clients, and students since 2016. I got started in marketing by accident. I just wanted to start a mom blog, and it just like happened. So here I am, all these years later, doing this professionally. I've helped hundreds of business owners, over 700 people in my membership so far in lifetime to date. And then the YouTube channel has just like grown. So that's my main platform where people can come and learn more about me and learn from me. Um, a little bit about me personally. I live in Tucson, Arizona. I have two daughters and a husband, and we love to do things that are just outdoors. So anytime I can disconnect and turn my phone off and throw my laptop in a drawer and run away, I'm there, sign me up.
Yeah, I think when you work online, it's overwhelming to be online so much.
Yeah, I'm chronically online, and I'm starting to realize that, the older I get and the more my kids grow and also learn how to use the internet. It's so funny because they know how to use Siri, but
Yep.
even my 14-year-old doesn't know how to do, like, use basic apps like Amazon, for example, because we've kept them pretty
Sheltered.
shielded from it. Yeah, for so long.
That's interesting. I think most kids, it's like an opposite, an experience where, they're more tech savvy than the parents.
Yeah, that's definitely has been my case through the years for my own life. My kids, they can use all sorts of apps. I mean, they play Roblox and all those things, but they don't have social media. They don't get to do, you know,
Yeah.
maybe fun things other teenagers or little kids are doing, but that's our choice.
It's for the I think it's a good way to shield them. They're gonna eventually be there.
They're gonna be there. Yeah, that's what my husband and I say. Eventually, it's gonna happen, and in that time, we've been talking about, media literacy and internet literacy, and these are things I'm learning too as I age. This is not something that we really Danielle and I, we've learned over the years.
Definitely, I think and to sort of think about all of this, I think media literacy and sort of understanding social media is becoming very increasingly more, like needed and
Yeah,
more important. And not just for personal reasons, but I think for marketing purposes like you have now. And I think that's kind of like a huge tonal shift in the way that marketing has been handled, where we definitely see a lot of people being lost in that space because there's people who know a lot about marketing, but they're not necessarily familiar with social media, which is really influencing the way that marketing is changed, and that's kind of like your entire focus, right?
yeah, and we're having conversations, and I'm seeing conversations happening right now, and I mean, this is a #ad podcast for influencers, right? So, where do influencers fit into the traditional media landscape of journalism and stuff like that? So, like, these big conversations and how we as creators and influencers online are engaging in the same spaces that traditional media and traditional businesses have historically just, like, owned and dominated the space, I think is so important to have. I I mean, I think to my benefit and honestly to the credit of my clients and students, Pinterest is such a great platform to kind of cut your teeth on because it's so different than like Instagram and TikTok. We don't have to dance in order to get views on Pinterest, and I just love that for us.
Actually, that's very interesting. I think I've talked to a lot of influencers who focus on, marketing through social media, but very little do I see people that are focused on Pinterest. Uh, Most of the time, I see people who are doing Instagram and TikTok, and they're giving advice for Instagram and TikTok and maybe even like Twitter or LinkedIn. But I see a very small amount of influencers talking about how you can use Pinterest for a business. And you're definitely one of those people who is like I would say you're from a very small group. Why were you drawn to using Pinterest as a marketing tool?
It actually started when I started my mom blog. So I was invited to Pinterest to be a pinner in 2010. I think it was around October. My daughter was just a couple of months old, my oldest daughter. And I'd posted on Facebook, like, how do I learn how to cook? Like, how do I teach myself how to cook? Because at this point, I could only cook boxed meals or frozen meals. And I was newly married. I had a new baby and I just needed to grow up.
Yeah.
And I was sick all the time from these boxed shelf meals. So I put that on Facebook, and my sister in law texted me an invite code to Pinterest. And this is when you could only invite a couple people because you had got invited. Shuffles recently did this, the new Pinterest app. It's a couple years old now. But you got 10 credits to invite friends when you got on the platform. So it was similar to that in 2010. She invited me. And that's kind of where the whole Pinterest obsession started. Back then, though, you could only scroll so far, and the end of the feed, it just stopped. The pictures were hideous, there were low lighting, it was people were taking them on, like, 3 megapixel iPhones.
Yeah, I remember.
It was just horrendous, but it worked, and within a year of the platform being in existence, the first iteration of the search platform really started to come online, and I just from the time I got started on it and fell in love with the platform, I just used it every single day as my primary search engine. Then in 2016, and it was slightly earlier than that. I started researching side hustles and things in 2014, got pregnant and had my kid in 15, my second one. So I kind of tabled the idea of any sort of side hustle while I was, you know, a second time mom again. And then I came back to it in 2016 and I went to Pinterest and I searched how to work from home. And this entire side of Pinterest, we talk about the sides of TikTok. I didn't know this entire side of Pinterest even existed. And it was just I couldn't keep up at that point. It was just a boulder going downhill. I was just searching everything under the sun. And that's where I learned about blogging, and one thing led to another. I started my first mom blog. I had known in this entire time that Pinterest was a good place to put your blog posts because I'd been using it every day for 6 years for that purpose. So it was just a natural occurrence for me to put my blog on Pinterest, and it blew up. It went from no page views to 5,000 page views in less than 3 months.
Also, I think you started at a time where people were not doing it that much, right? So that also was to your advantage. I think now we sort of see a lot more people learning about this and trying to get that presence online through social media. So I know that you started doing Pinterest, and like you said, I think a lot of people have used Pinterest as a search engine more than a marketing tool or a social media website. But I'm curious to see from your side, what do you think sets Pinterest apart from other social media platforms for marketing and that marketing potential? So, for example, you know, with Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, we see a lot of like video content being put out, and it's more about interacting with an audience, whereas Pinterest is not about that interaction directly.
Yeah, it's the longevity and the sustainability of the content that you put there. So you can park your content on Pinterest and it can be found for years. If you do an SEO based strategy on Pinterest from the beginning, you really have kind of this freedom and flexibility just to continue putting your content there. And you don't really need to do much else. You don't need to engage with other people. You don't have to go in other people's comments. You don't need to have DMs going. You don't have to post stories in order to keep your profile alive. People are so afraid to let that story bubble expire, but none of that happens or is necessary on Pinterest. You can quite simply take your content, take your products, apply a really good design and keyword strategy to it, put it on your profile, and people are going to be able to find it for years. So, oftentimes when I'm on interviews like this or I'm talking to people, I ask them, like, when was the last time you went to someone's Instagram account and you scrolled down and down and down and down and down in their feed?
I mean, years I guess, like, when I'm stalking someone,
When you're stalking someone, right? That's when I do it too. And that's,
even then, like, I'll stop halfway because I get bored if they have too much.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, Pinterest, you don't need to do that. You don't need to find someone's profile and then scroll through all of their pins. You just simply need to know what you want and search for it, and the content gets served to the audience. So, the way that I look at Pinterest, and I actually, this is not my idea. I just saw someone talk about this on threads in relation to YouTube the other day. But someone said YouTube doesn't push creators' videos, they select and serve videos to people who are looking for them. And I really kind of like that thought process. Pinterest does the same exact thing. So you put your content on the platform, you use good keywords, you use good creatives, you pin it to your Pinterest boards, and then you walk away. Pinners are gonna come behind you, and Pinterest is gonna self-select the content for them based on their search terms, and I think that's just so powerful. You're not having to chase constantly. You're not having to, um, put your ring light up and find trending audios and shake your booty constantly in order to get people to stop and watch you. There's no need for you to create 7-second videos to try and go viral over on Pinterest, and I am all for it.
And I definitely think that, like you said, that's huge for people who are not necessarily into putting themselves out there online. Um, I think there is a growing demand for people to have a social media presence, or a business, of course, but that doesn't mean that everybody wants to have their face plastered on, someone's Instagram or who wants recording videos. And, you know, I think what you are doing is also giving those people an alternative that doesn't require all of this sort of video and face-centered, person-centered marketing that I think
Yeah.
you're sort of getting accustomed to. Um, and also I think a budget-friendly option. I think with platforms like YouTube and to a degree, Instagram and TikTok, obviously a lot less. I've seen this growing fear because there's a demand for very curated content,
Yep.
especially for YouTube, which really scares people to put themselves out there when before, everybody would make a YouTube video out of their laptop webcam and it didn't matter if you were filming out of that. Nowadays, it's like, well, if I don't have a $7,000 camera, how am I supposed to make a YouTube
Oh
video?
my gosh. Daniela, I have a funny story. So YouTube's my first platform.
Right.
I crewed on YouTube first. I bought this camera in 2019. It's just a Canon M50. It's the first version. My husband dropped this in a creek in Costa Rica, and I stuck it in a bag of rice as quickly as I could. Managed to save it, but it doesn't hold battery anymore. So every time I film, I have to change
Yeah.
the battery out. So, like, I have 8 batteries over here ready to go. So if I film 2 videos in a day, I swap the battery between videos. I refuse to buy a $7,000 camera because at the end it's a similar reason why I don't show up on Instagram Reels or TikTok much anymore. I don't care to film aesthetic B-roll and apply my knowledge to it. If you can't handle looking at my sometimes unmade face or uncombed hair, like, you're not for me, and I will just turn the video around and just listen to what I have to say. But, yeah, I'm just not willing to show up and be aesthetic and go into debt buying, unnecessary.
No, and it takes a long time too. Like, I mean, I have seen influencer videos that are beautiful, right? Like, they're beautifully edited, beautifully like, everything about it is so perfect. They're wearing the perfect outfit, perfect hair, perfect everything just fits right in. But then I'm like, how much time did it take you to do this, right? Like
I know it takes them a long time, and I applaud them for their craft. I don't have the time or patience, and if you're like me and you want to do, content and marketing, then Pinterest might be a platform for you because you don't necessarily have to show your face. I did one brand photo shoot in 2021 for my website rebrand in 2022. It's been almost 3 years since that shoot, and I'm still using those brand photos. So if you want to show yourself in brand photos and use those for Pinterest pins, you can. Be really strategic with your brand photographer and get a lot of different options, and you'll never run out.
yeah, so just like I think what your strategy shows is how much evergreen content can help you and how there's still an alternative for, content that doesn't require for you to record yourself directly or have like, everything perfectly curated and ready to go. I think we also underestimate the fact that not everybody has an aesthetic background to use
No.
or, like a place where they can just like make everything look gorgeous.
No, yeah, there's definitely a lot of that. I mean, so many influencers these days are still living paycheck to paycheck in the United States, and that's so unfortunate. And it's just the reality of the world that we live in. So if you don't have that in your life, there are other ways to go about it. I have the resources to do that. I just don't have the talent or the patience.
Or the desire, which is totally okay to not want to do that. I think a lot of times people feel like they have to make these types of videos to succeed in marketing, and it doesn't have to be that way. Like you're living proof of it.
Yeah. Well, and to talk to the people that are doing those kinds of aesthetic, beautiful style videos or brand UGC content on other platforms, Pinterest is also a good place to repurpose that. I've been working on content around that for a little while. So Pinterest actually just released an Instagram integration for your Instagram profile to Pinterest, and what it will do is it removes the watermark, removes copyrighted music, and automatically publishes it to your Pinterest profile. Then you can go in and you can actually edit the destination link. So, let's say you're an influencer listening and you just did a brand deal with, I don't know, Canon cameras, and you have a partnership link that you were sending people to in your link in bio. Once that pin once that Instagram reel becomes a Pinterest pin on Pinterest, you can edit the pin and change the link from Instagram to your Canon partnership link, and now you're sending people directly to where they need to go to take advantage of whatever offer you were doing with this brand, and that in and of itself is so powerful because it cuts the time down between repurposing, which so many influencers are doing these days. They're trying to get as much audience share as they can. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok all have short form video content platforms now. And Pinterest is also in that they're at that same table. They're offering the same capability. You can do 4 seconds to 4 minute videos, vertical, horizontal, square, whatever size and dimensions you want on Pinterest. But yeah, take advantage of Pinterest for those influencers who are creating all of this great brand content too. So Daniela, it also brings up a really good point. So if you I mean this podcast is for influencers and influencers who are creating really beautiful content. It's so well thought out and executed. Those people have a really good place on Pinterest too. It's not just for people who don't wanna show their face or don't wanna be the center of attention. It's a place for everyone. So if you are creating UGC content for brands, for example, or you have brand deals, and you're creating that influencer style content, I want you to think about how you can use Pinterest as a platform for yourself as well. So most of these platforms are offering up short form video hosting now. So with YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest is also a place for short form video. You can actually put video 4 seconds to 4 minutes, any shape and size, just about, but vertical is the most obvious choice. And just pair your influencer content with a really good keyword plan, really good keyword strategy, and publish your content there. In fact, Instagram recently released a tool where you can import, not Instagram, Pinterest partnered with Instagram to release an import feature So you connect your Instagram account inside your Pinterest settings and it auto imports your Instagram content for you. It removes the copyrighted music, it removes the watermark, and then you can go in and edit that content once it publishes to Pinterest. So if you did have a brand Instagram reel that is now a Pinterest pin, whatever you're showcasing in that brand, let's say they gave you a partner link, for example, you can edit that video on Pinterest once it's imported, and you can change the link to go directly to the partner link instead of back to Instagram. So the feature and functionality is there for Pinterest to welcome and have and offer a place for creators of all kinds and
Yeah,
all scale.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's offers, like, a wide variety of uses opposed to other types of platforms that are very specific to, one kind of content or one certain type of thing to do. What is, in your opinion, the type of content that performs best and worst on Instagram? I'm curious because I think, like, if you put it into perspective, I think right now TikTok has implemented, like, a photo option, but obviously video is their bread and butter, and Instagram has added Instagram Reels, but it is a photo app, so photos are very important still. Um, for Pinterest, however, it's very interesting because it's mostly utilized as a search engine for a lot of people. What do you think performs best?
It really depends on the creator, the niche, and the keyword strategy that they use. So if you want to primarily create video on Pinterest, you can do that. If you want to mix and match video and image pins, you can also do that. They've also just introduced a new collage feature, which is that Shuffles app I mentioned earlier. They birthed Shuffles as an individual app, and then eventually they've kind of morphed them together. So when you go to your mobile app and you create a pin, you have that option to create a collage now. So I think it's really up to you what you want to use and in your niche, specifically what's doing well. Now, if you want to know what's doing well in your niche or what other creators are doing, you have that option to find that. So just go to the search bar, search for the video topic you were just about to create. So if you were going to create a video on a capsule wardrobe, search capsule wardrobe for whatever aesthetic or theme you're creating, and then look at the content that comes up in the search. If you don't see a lot of video there, you should be creating video for that search term.
'Cause, like, you're filling that void, right?
Yes.
Yeah, which is really interesting. I think for people who are, like, sleeping on Pinterest or don't know what to do even, and I think most of us are more familiar with other platforms for marketing. How do you suggest just getting started? Is it just like, you start posting the content that you were posting to Instagram to Pinterest? You start creating whatever you wanna create for Pinterest or, repurposing or directly linking Instagram, like you said, to the Pinterest? What is your suggestion for that?
Yeah, my suggestion is going to be to start with your business and get really real with yourself with what you're known for. So for example, I have a website. I know a lot of influencers are just creating on Instagram. Maybe they don't have a website. They might just have like a stand store or something similar. So what I want you to do is kind of brainstorm in a notebook. I have a little Planoly notebook right here, and I want you to just brainstorm what your pillars are in your business. What are your pillars of content? That's where I want you to start. So my pillars in my business, for example, are Pinterest organic marketing, Pinterest paid marketing, graphic design, and automation. And then underneath each pillar, what are people searching for related to that topic? And I want you to start with this list on the search bar on Pinterest or in the trends tool or in the ads manager using any of those three options. You can find keywords and just start creating a keyword list for all of the things that you want to ultimately share on Pinterest. Once you have your keyword list, I want you to create your Pinterest boards. And then once you have your Pinterest boards, you can start creating that Pinterest content. So whether you're bringing it over from another platform or whether you're creating it brand new in Canva and putting it on Pinterest. But that's really where you start. Got to start with keyword research, create your Pinterest boards, then we create content.
Yeah, so it has to be kind of, like, methodical, right? And there is some research involved, I think, for Pinterest, and I think it's really interesting how much SEO plays a part in Pinterest with Whereas with other platforms, I think SEO is always important, but I think a lot of people tend to overlook it and it's fine. Or
And
not.
overthink it too. So once they get started with it, they overthink it and they ask questions like, "Well, there's 25 keywords in this search result. How do I know which one to choose?"
Yeah, how do you know which one to choose?
Great question. Yeah, so I usually start so if you're in the search bar on Pinterest, the ranking is from top to bottom in the autofill. So imagine a search bar and you're typing in like modern chic furniture or something like that. So as you're typing that in, there's an autofill that's starting to populate in that search bar. So top to bottom in that search is the most searched for, like, it's prioritized in that way, and then once you hit enter, from left to right is the most searched for in the bubbles at the top. So if you have a US-based account or most Western European countries also offer the little bubbles underneath search terms, then you will notice, like, if you were to type in, like, minimalist furniture, underneath, it's gonna start coming up with different styles and colors and fabrics. So you go left to right with those bubbles using that seed keyword you put in the search bar. Now there's 2 tools on Pinterest I've already mentioned, the Trends tool and the Ads Manager. They offer search volume. So you could also just use those tools and see what search volume is and go with whatever has the highest search volume first.
So when you're finding sort of those higher words, higher keywords, highest search volume, you gotta work from that to start creating, thinking like, "Okay, people are really like brown couches,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So
So
let me."
what's your style and aesthetic and what do you do in your business? Interior designers of all shapes and sizes are on Pinterest, and pretty much every aesthetic or vibe is represented. So yeah, you can start with like brown couch, but then somebody might be doing contemporary, whereas Danielle is doing mid-century and I'm doing, English.
Yeah,
So just look for the things that are related to your business and what you create, sell in your business.
and that's kinda like how it's getting, like, more niche down because brown couch is so general, like, everybody can have a brown couch, right? And then from brown couch, you go to, like, contemporary, then you go from contemporary to modern and so forth.
And then, yeah. So, what I want you to be thinking about to further answer your question is how to know which one to choose. I don't want you to go with a short tail keyword like modern brown couch. I'd rather you go with a longer tail keyword, especially for your board titles. So, like, um, mid century modern leather couches. And then if the couch is brown, it will fit on that board the same way if the couch is gray, it'll fit on that board. So, be thinking in a more broad overview, but also long tail, and you'll end up ranking for both versions, the short and the long
That's very,
tail.
like, very interesting. I think that's kinda like a very methodical way of seeing things that I think a lot of times people don't know, how to even understand it, how am I gonna even it's my brown couch, like, I just wanna sell it.
I just want to sell this brown piece of furniture. What do you do? That's what you do. Yeah.
Well, it's been really interesting having you today on the podcast, and you have a lot of Pinterest knowledge and a lot of SEO knowledge, which I think a lot of people are not very savvy in, so it's definitely been very helpful. For anybody who wants to grow on Pinterest or learn more about it or would like to work with you, the floor is yours to tell us where they can go.
Yeah, so just come over to heatherfarris.com. It's Farris. I think my name is on the screen, but if you are listening in your ears, it's Farris. You'll find me there, probably in a pink shirt with a cactus on the front of some sort.
Mhm.
And everything that I offer is right there on my website. So I have, free content on my blog and my YouTube channel, but I also offer, a low cost paid membership and done for you services. So depending on where you're at in your journey and what you specifically need as a business owner, chances are I have some sort of resource for you.
Awesome. Yeah, then I will be adding those links to our description for the video so that people can those who are watching can go see it and for listeners as well so that anybody can go in and check you out.
Thank you, Daniela. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. It was really fun. And to everybody listening, I'll see you on the next episode.